Welcome back to day 2 of our Josie Bra Pants sewing tutorial. Yesterday you cut out all of your pieces, so we should be ready to go. Today we're going to be focusing on the different techniques we will use to sew elastic. This is the most important aspect of sewing underwear, and having a good practice before you start on the real thing will make a huge difference. There are lots of different types of elastic used in underwear construction. For this pattern, you can use 10 to 12 millimeter wide plush elastic, 10 to 15 millimeter wide fold over elastic, or a combination of the two. I tend to use plush elastic for the bra and upper hip of the pants, and fold over elastic for the leg opening of the pants. Plush elastic is usually stronger and thicker, so it gives more support on the bra. However, you can make the whole set with fold over elastic alone. Fold over elastic is thinner and smoother and helps avoid BPL. If you have bought one of the Josie Bra Pants kits, it will come with super high quality fold over elastic, which can be used to make the whole set. From here on in, when I refer to fold over elastic, I'll use the shortening FOE. Hope that's not confusing. SPSE, SPRE and SFRE are 3 different sewing techniques which I will keep referring back to as I make the set. I'll break down what each one means so that you have a practice before we start. I recommend grabbing some scraps left over from cutting out yesterday to practice on. For all of these techniques, you will need to stretch the elastic as you sew. So let me give you a few top tips about how to do that. Overstretching the elastic will cause the fabric to shrink and gather too much. A friend of mine calls this the crispy bacon effect because the fabric shrivels up like bacon in a hot pan. If you understretch the elastic, the fabric will stretch out too much and the bra and pants might not fit. The only way to find the right balance is practice until it becomes second nature. So spend a little time getting used to it. First of all, we pop the fabric down and then the elastic goes on top. Pop the foot down and the needle in. Do a little back stitch. And then once you've done your back stitch, you can start to gently stretch the elastic. We're not stretching it like miles, we're just doing a really gentle pull as we sew. And we're making sure we're not stretching the fabric, just the elastic. I've got my machine set up to a zigzag stitch here because that allows it to stretch. There we go. That's how to stretch your elastic. Now let's move on to the different techniques. Our first technique is SPSE, which stands for sewing plush elastic onto the scallop edge. You can sew the elastic using a wide 3-step zigzag or a normal zigzag stitch on the scallop edge of lace. The stitch width should span the width of the elastic. Sew the elastic just inside where the scallop is at its lowest point on the wrong side of the lace. Your plush elastic should be stretched 10% using the technique described earlier. If you were to use fold over elastic for this technique, you would simply fold it in half and stitch it down the middle. Let me demonstrate. Here we have our lace and we're going to pop that on the machine with the wrong side of the lace facing up towards you. And we have our plush elastic and we're going to pop that on the lace with the plush side of the elastic facing towards you as well. The plush side is usually slightly softer and more cushioned, which means it sits nicely against the body. We've got the machine set up to a wide zigzag. You can either use a normal zigzag or a 3-step zigzag. Both will work fine. To begin, we do a little back stitch. And we want the zigzag to spread across most of the elastic. And then using the stretching technique we just discussed, I'm going to gently stretch out the elastic. And I'm just sewing all the way down the elastic, and I've got it about 5 millimeter from the lowest point of the scallop edge. Hopefully you can see my bright ochre stitching on that blue, which also means you can see where I've gone wonky. But there you go, you get the idea. That's the elastic on the back, and that's how it looks on the right side. It's a really beautiful finish. If you wanted to do this technique with fold over elastic, it's really easy. You simply fold over the elastic and then stitch straight down the middle of it, gently stretching out as you go, same as always. Finish with a little back stitch. Trim away any threads and excess. And that is fold over elastic on a scalloped edge of lace. Now let's move on to the SPRE technique. That stands for sewing plush elastic onto a raw edge. I'll demonstrate using the same piece of lace. This time, you pop the lace with the right side facing you on the machine. And then you grab your plush elastic and you line it up with the edge of the lace so that the elastic is just covering the edge of the lace by 1 millimeter. You want to make sure the plush side of the elastic is facing you. And if your elastic has a picot or decorative edge, that needs to be away from the raw edge of the lace. You'll see why in a minute. We've got a nice small zigzag stitch set up on the machine, and we're just going to start with a little back stitch. Gently stretching out the elastic as described before. And I'm just sewing almost down the middle of the elastic. Little back stitch at the end, trim that away, and then you flip your elastic over like this, and you see you get that beautiful professional finish with the nice decorative picot edge poking out. So now we just need to do another line of zigzag stitching right on the edge of the elastic, and we're going to sew this from the right side. Start with a little back stitch. And end with a little back stitch. And there you have it. That is how to sew plush elastic onto a raw edge. You should end up with 2 lines of zigzag stitching just next to each other rather than on top of each other. Now for the next technique. Our third technique is called SFRE, which stands for sewing fold over elastic onto a raw edge. There's lots of different ways of doing this, but having taught underwear workshops all over the UK, I found this is the most beginner friendly. The elastic has a matte side and a shiny side, and you need to decide which side you want showing at the end. Whichever side that is, you're going to face that down right sides together with your fabric. I'm going to go for the shiny side sewing at the end, so I've got my matte side facing me now. I've got my machine set up to a zigzag stitch, and I'm just going to start with a little back stitch. I'm going to stitch straight down the middle of the fold over elastic, and that should be easy because there's literally a line in the middle of the elastic which you can follow. Again, gently stretching it out just the way I described earlier. Once you've done your first line of stitching, you can trim that away, and then we're going to flip it over and do another line of stitching. You can see I'm gently pulling the fabric away so that we get a really nice clean finish. Little back stitch at the end, trim your threads, and that is how you sew fold over elastic onto a raw edge. Once again, you should have 2 lines of stitching not on top of each other, just next to each other. That is the end of day 2. I hope you've had a really good chance to practice some elastic techniques. Now that you've got those down, we're ready to start sewing the Josie Bra Pants tomorrow. I'll see you there.